Hey, Ashley.
Yes.
Hit the air. It's Iron Time for Monday Morning Fallout. Fallout, of course, when we overreact to the football weekend. Fair amount to overreact to. There's the intro again.
Oh, look at that. Let's see. And we're back. Hey, I didn't play this week in recruiting this time.
That's
so
true.
That's
It's an improvement.
We got the first one right, at
improvement.
least.
We're moving in the right direction. Well, it's Monday Morning Fallout, overreact to the football weekend. We'll start with my 3 big thoughts. Thought number 1, no bye week here. So this was the biggest open date week of the year. And coaches, I'm always very cautious of calling it a bye week because it's not a bye week. They don't
like that.
They're not off. They are as a working week, but they just don't have a game. They're open date. But more teams had an open date this week than any other week of the year, of the regular season. There's almost 30% of the state was off. And yet, I feel like while there were a lot of teams that were not playing this week, we still managed to have a number of really, really big-time results.
Mm-hmm.
And from games, some we saw coming. The game you were at on Friday night, for example. You were at South Lake Carroll's win over Denton Geyer. And obviously, that has big ramifications in the sense that, look, South Lake Carroll's in the capability to win that district title. But I will also say that in other ways, it has no ramifications. In the sense that Denton Geyer's going to the Division II bracket, almost certainly. I think there may be a way that's not going to happen, that they go to the Division I bracket, but they're going to the Division II bracket almost certainly. And South Lake Carroll is definitely going to the Division I bracket. Mm-hmm. So that loss for Geyer is not necessarily crippling, but I think it still provides us with a really interesting data point about how good South Lake Carroll is.
Quinn Ewers, the sophomore quarterback, that kid is absolutely impressive. Just watching it was insane the things that he was doing. I think 5 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. It was unbelievable what he could do.
Yeah, he's a stud.
He really, really is.
He's a stud. We knew that was going to be a big game. It turned out to be a big game. The other one, you go out to East Texas with Pleasant Grove and Carthage, and Carthage's win over PG. Mm-hmm. And again, no real playoff implications because Carthage is Division I team, Pleasant Grove's Division II team. I still think Pleasant Grove, we'll have our rankings here in a moment, but I have a feeling, I think that Pleasant Grove may still be the best team for Division II. But they lost. Carthage looked, if they had ever left the conversation for 4 Division I, then they have certainly reinserted themselves back in that conversation. But then there were other kind of surprises around the state. I thought that Weimer's win over Flatonia was very impressive. Mm-hmm. I thought that Klein Cain's upset win over the Woodlands was very impressive. I also thought Klein Oaks' big win over Klein Collins was very impressive as well. Overall, even though there were a lot of teams that took the week off, high school ball didn't take the week off. There were a lot of big-time moves that are going to make for an interesting stretch run. Because now we're in the back half of the regular season, guys. Mm-hmm. There's 5 weeks left in the regular season.
Which is crazy.
It's going to be a mad scramble to the finish. Thought number 1. Thought number 2, consistently chaotic. And that's the only way to describe what goes on in college football in this state every week. Whether it's a team that we had crowned that goes out there and plays with their food in a big way, looking at USMU. But they won, and I think that we're kind of still in the part, and we'll talk about this in our campus crawl. I don't think we've reached a point where SMU can start being upset about the style in which they win. Wins are wins still, and wins are still impressive wins. That's fine. Then there's teams that we buried that go out there and play their best game of the year, like Texas Tech. That was super impressive.
It really was.
To go, and that game got a little hairy late, but they were the better team. Plain simple.
And when you start watching it from the beginning, I was like, okay, how long until Texas Tech just gives this one up? And they really kept going the whole time.
Jet Duffy was terrific. That was very impressive. And then you had teams that I think, if you want to say that they have been the most consistent, I think that's fair. Texas goes on the road to West Virginia. Started a little slow, but then they
the kicker was under review for targeting. When do you hear that? I tweeted, I was like, if you want to know how this game is going, that sums it up in one sentence.
Yeah. but they picked it up and they won in a way that was impressive. And Baylor goes on the road in what I felt like maybe a bit of a trap game. They go to Kansas State and they take care of business, or Iowa State rather, and take care of business. No, Kansas State. Kansas State. Take care of business. That was a very impressive, and if you're talking about teams that have been consistent, those would be the two teams that I spotlight. That's thought number 2. Thought number 3, halfway there. Again, we are in now week 7 of the Texas high school football season. We're into week 7, and we have at least, well, for Jasper's had 3 games canceled, but we are now at the point where we have basically at least 5 data points for each team. I feel like we are starting to figure out, now that we're at the halfway point, we're starting to figure out who the teams are that are going to be playing deep into December. But at the same time, it's also worth remembering that for most of those data points in the early going, don't matter. These are the games that matter. Now that we're in district play, this is where the bracket is getting shaped. This is where we're figuring it out. So we're halfway through the Texas high school football regular season, and yet the most important half is still to come. Those are my 3 big thoughts.
I almost came in with another song on that one and started singing Journey, but I didn't. I spared you for today. You're welcome.
3 helmet stickers. It's too early in the week. 3 helmet stickers. Helmet sticker for Richardson Pierce, running back DeQuan London. Carried the ball 42 times for 326 yards and 4 touchdowns for Pierce. Big one for them. A helmet sticker for SMU wide receiver James Prochet. He willed them back into that game. 11 catches, 153 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner in triple overtime. SMU wide receiver James Prochet was sensational on Saturday. A big reason why they are still undefeated. One of the big reasons why they're still undefeated. James Prochet, the wide receiver for SMU, helmet sticker for him. And a helmet sticker for Kennedy, running back and defensive back at Cam Miller. Kennedy off to a fantastic start. I think 5-1. 119 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing. He had a kickoff return for a touchdown. He also had 5 tackles, a tackle for loss, and an interception. A helmet sticker for Kennedy, running back and defensive back Cam Miller. 3 teams to watch. Klein Oak. In back-to-back weeks, Jason Glenn's squad has now beaten the Woodlands and Klein Collins. That is very impressive. Klein Oak is a team that I have certainly got my eye on now going forward. And when you take a look at the way that district is shaking out, you can't help but feel like they're going to have a chance to make some noise in a big way. They are now, as I pulled up, they are now 3-1 in that district. But they have wins over Collins and the Woodlands. Those are going to serve them well going forward. Very, very impressive for Klein Oak. And that defense is starting to bow up. That is a very impressive one. They'll be big favorites this week against winless Klein Forest. Team to watch, Baylor. As I mentioned, maybe the most consistent team in the state. It's not always pretty. I don't think that they play a particularly, like, to the neutral. I don't know if they play this particularly, like, attractive style of football. Mm-hmm. That they're just really efficient. And they run the ball pretty well. John Lovett showed up late in that game in a big way. The defense plays well. Still bigger fish to fry coming forward. Bigger challenges ahead. But through 5 weeks, through 5 games rather, they have been very impressive as far as just their consistency. They're not going to get those. I don't think they're this highlight-worthy team that's going to lead SportsCenter every week. But what they're going to do is they're just going to go out there and they're going to be a problem for everyone they play. Team to watch. And Sterling City. Big win for them over Rankin. I think in the 6-man ranks. That was a very impressive result for them. One of the most impressive results of the weekend. Those are 3 teams to watch. 3 teams to worry about. Bremond goes out there and gets bodied by Hamilton. Very, very disappointing. Bremont, in the in 2A Division 2, which has been so chaotic, 2A Division 2 has been crazy. They were a team that looked like they were bobbing along, going pretty well, unscathed, had put together 5 good results, and then for some reason, I'm not saying Hamilton, credit to Hamilton, give them all the credit in the world, and they're actually having a better year than you would think. And by the way, that's 2A Division 2 losing to a 3A Division 2, but still. That was a bit of a disappointing loss there for Bremont. UTEP, well, I guess we know now who the worst team in the state is. That was ugly.
Did you watch every single snap like you were hoping that you would be able to?
Of course I didn't. No. I watched about half of it.
Yeah.
And it's just, but
That's
UTEP,
more than a lot of people.
UTEP just looked inept offensively, and it was just really disappointing. And UTSA's got an okay defense, but not the kind that should shut down UTEP.
It's like I was saying that last time we talked about UTEP. They go out there. It doesn't look like they know what they're doing. Like it's confusion all over the. I don't know what the miscommunication is there.
And finally, we mentioned it, the Woodlands. They lose to Klein Kane. Credit to Klein Kane. That's a great win for them. But suddenly, in that same district, when you're talking about District 13-6 or 15-6A, they're now 2-2 in district, and losses to Klein Oak and now Klein Kane. That is very disappointing. And the Woodlands tumbling down the rankings, now just 3-3 on the year. After a really hot start, they've really faded here. So there are 3 teams to worry about, and that is Monday Morning Fallout.